Mark Carney is crisis-proof, but this might shape up to be the biggest challenge of his career. The central banker turned politician was sworn in as Canada's new Prime Minister today, and he has his work cut out for him. For one, there's the spiraling trade war with the United States, an issue on which Carney has signaled willingness to strike a deal with the Trump administration. But then there is Donald Trump's repeated questioning of Canada's sovereignty, and Carney has made abundantly clear that he won't give an inch. Here's what he said after taking the oath of office today.
Well, I've been clear. Personally, I've been clear. The ministers behind me, I think, to an individual, when asked, have been clear that we will never, ever, in any way, shape, or form, be part of the United States. I look forward to speaking with President Trump. Just to be clear, we respect the United States. We respect President Trump.
Now, for months, Donald Trump has been publicly floating his plans to annex Canada. Yesterday, he repeated the threat, saying Canada would make a great U.S. state.
Canada only works as a state. It doesn't. We don't need anything they have. As a state, it would be one of the great states anyway. This would be the most incredible country visually. If you look at a map, they drew an artificial line right through it between Canada and the U.S., just a straight artificial line. Somebody did it a long time ago, many, many decades ago, and makes no sense. It's so perfect as a great and cherished state.
I'm joined now by journalist Lucy van Oldenbarneveld in Ottawa and Jeffrey Frankel, who's an economist and professor at Harvard University. He joins us from Cambridge, Massachusetts. Welcome to you both. So great to see you. Lucy, let's start with you. Give us a brief introduction to Mark Carney. Who is he?
Well, Mark Carney has jumped onto the Canadian political landscape, but we've known him for a while. He was our central banker during the 2008 stock market crash, and then he went on to become the governor of the Bank of England. So a well-respected economist. He has a PhD in economics from Oxford University. He then went on to Goldman Sachs and was in the private sector for a while before he came back to the public sector. So Mark Carney has been rumored to be wanting to enter Canadian politics for a while, and now here he is, our brand new Prime Minister.
Jeffrey, Carney helped the UK navigate Brexit. We heard it there. He was the head of Canada's central bank during the financial crisis. What expertise from that time can he bring to the table now?
Well, I think Mark Carney is a great person for this job and at this particular time. There is his expertise in economics, but I guess I would say that he has the self-confidence to stand up to Donald Trump. I mean, I think a lot of leaders around the world must be thinking, he's the president of the United States. He must have something in mind. He must know something we don't know. But I think Mark Carney will realize, and does already realize, that Trump doesn't actually have anything much in mind, and will stand up to him.
And as a fellow economist, how would you recommend he tackle the trade war unleashed by Donald Trump?
The ceremony we just witnessed.
Well, I think they're doing it right, which is tit for tat. If we put 25% tariffs against them, they put 25% tariffs against us. And in a game theory sense, I would think eventually that would force the U.S. to back down.
Lucy, do you see him doing that? For now, it looks like, economically at least, he will continue Justin Trudeau's strategy, the strategy of his predecessor.
Well, I mean, I think one of the things that people have noticed about President Trump. Sorry, Jeffrey, did you want to jump back in there?
Go ahead, quite all right. Sorry.
Okay. I mean, what I was going to say is, if you show President Trump a backbone, which Mark Carney has come out of the gate doing, and as demanding respect for Canada and be demanded to be treated respectfully, that seems to be the approach that Mark Carney will take going forward. Now, he also has the experience and the education to back that up. So he is going to be a formidable foe for President Trump. But he's not only stopping there, he's also shoring up his support in Europe. Next week, he is off to France and to England to meet with the leaders there to shore up support to start to begin to diversify the Canadian economy so that we aren't so beholden to the U.S. as our number one trading partner. He's looking very much into the future. And yes, Justin Trudeau started these policies, but Mark Carney really knows his stuff.
And also just the fact that his first trips abroad are not going to be to the United States, but to Europe, that's already quite something, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's sort of unprecedented because typically the first visit for a brand new Canadian Prime Minister is to our number one trading partner, Washington, who was ever in Washington. But Carney has made it clear that until the United States starts to show Canada respect, and that's what he has said, he is more than willing to meet with President Trump, but there's got to be a base level of respect, and that starts with not calling the Canadian Prime Minister a governor. And that is just such an offensive thing to Canadians that it's a non-starter. And Mark Carney has the backbone to not capitulate in any way.
Jeffrey, backbone he has shown, but he's also, but he's signaled a willingness to strike a deal with Trump on trade. How should he go about this?
Well, my prediction as to what's going to happen.
But if this were, to spiral further out of control, it would be the Canadians who stand to lose more, wouldn't it be? Oh, I think.
I don't know if Jeffrey can hear us.
Directed to me.
Yeah, Jeffrey, sorry. Okay, I thought we'd lost you there for a second.
If we were to put the 25% tariffs on Canada and hold them, that Canada would be hit more badly than the U.S. If Canada retaliates, it hurts both sides. But Trump keeps postponing the tariffs, and the current date, the deadline we're supposed to be looking forward to is April 2nd. If I had to guess, I would predict that either Trump will postpone the tariffs against threatened tariffs against Mexico and Canada again, or at some point he will realize he can't keep doing that and will just declare victory and back down. Particularly with the auto industry, he can't put up 25% tariffs unless he makes exceptions for many firms and industries like the auto industry. And they said there are no exceptions this time. So the effect of that would be so extreme on the U.S. auto industry that I just don't think he's going to go through with it. I think he'll keep postponing them until he can't postpone them anymore, and then he'll just declare victory based on whatever little concessions he's gotten.
So why are we seeing him do this then, Jeffrey? Is this all just political maneuvering? Is he bluffing? Or has he just now come to the realization that this is going to backfire horribly for the American people?
I think there's some who say that he stakes out these strong positions as a bargaining ploy, as a threat, a chip that later on he can come to an agreement and get some concessions from the trading partners and not give up that much for the U.S. But I don't think it makes sense as a bargaining chip. I think he does it because he likes to. He likes to declare war. His supporters cheer. And he's not thinking that far ahead. And when push comes to shove, he's got to confront the fact, and maybe already is confronting the fact, that if he carried out all his tariff threats, particularly against Canada with the auto industry at 25%, that would be very bad for the U.S. auto industry. And so I think it's forcing him to confront the reality.
Lucy, the U.S. Secretary of Commerce says the best way to overcome the trade differences is by making Canada the 51st state of the U.S. You have mentioned how badly this is going down, of course, in Canada. How seriously is this kind of talk being taken in Ottawa, though?
Well, that's a great question. It is being taken very seriously. It's an absolute non-starter for Canadians. Talk of becoming the 51st state has united Canadians in a way that we have not seen in decades. I mean, it really has brought Canadians together from all political stripes. And so as we move into this next period where we will be into an election, Mark Carney's expected to call an election, the ballot question is, who can best deal with Donald Trump? on this issue of disrespect and becoming the 51st state. But we see very much that he wants to cripple the Canadian economy, and which would make Canada more vulnerable for takeover. But we have an economist in charge now, and Canadians, this is such a non-starter, and it's made Canadians extremely angry and united. So people are canceling vacations to the United States. People are not buying American goods. People are now moving away from the formerly popular conservative candidate who was leading in the polls because he was seen to be too in the same political camp as Donald Trump and moving more towards an experienced economist like Carney. We will see in the election, but it is united Canadians like nothing else. We're
Jeffrey,
furious.
Jeffrey, we talked about the challenges already present. Are you foreseeing any curveballs Trump might have in store for Carney that he should be preparing for as he takes office?
Well, I'm anticipating lots of curveballs. Everything that Trump does is unpredictable. But if you want me to predict what the curveball is going to be, I'm afraid I can't do that. Let me say I agree that Carney is the right man for the job. I also agree, obviously, that Canada is not going to be the 51st state. If one had predicted that on a satire in January of what the most outrageous thing that Trump could possibly do, trying to take over Canada would be the limiting thing as a joke or as a parody. Personally, I would be in favor. Canada would get enough electoral votes that people like Trump would no longer be elected president in the United States.
That was Lucy Van Oldenbarneveld. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, we have a pretty great healthcare system, Jeffrey. And a standard of living that we're not interested. But thanks.
You know, maybe Jeffrey might be considering a move across the border, but I'm going to have to send you guys off. That was Jeffrey Frankel and Lucy Van Oldenbarneveld. Great speaking to you both. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Lydia Miljan joins me now. She's a professor of political science at the University of Windsor in Canada. That is, Lydia, what is Carney's strategy in dealing with Washington going to be?
So far, it seems like he wants to ignore Washington and ignore Trump. I mean, it's quite telling that his first act as prime minister is to take a trip abroad. Typically, that's done to the United States, but not this time around. He's actually going to Europe to meet with leaders in France and England. And, you know, from his statements to the press corps today, he said, you know, he has no intention in the short term going to Washington, and he'll speak to Trump by phone if the moment arrives. So it seems to me that he wants to avoid sort of going down to Washington to kiss the ring. He doesn't want to be humiliated as our previous prime minister was when he went to Mar-a-Lago. And then, you know, we've been basically trolled since then by the U.S. president with the 51st state and always referring to Prime Minister Trudeau as a governor.
He is crisis-proof, isn't he? He was the head of the British Central Bank throughout Brexit. What can we expect from him regarding his approach to the trade war with the U.S., him being an economist?
Well, we know he's an economist. We know he's very much a technocrat. He certainly was also the governor of the Bank of Canada during the 2008 recession and has taken quite a lot of credit for steering the Canadian economy. The former Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, took umbrage to that, actually saying that the heavy lifting was done by his finance minister, Jim Flaherty. At the same time, he's really just focusing on the fact that he is the adult in the room. He's trying to convey a message of change. We know we've had 10 years of the current government, and really this is all in the backdrop of having an election campaign probably imminently, probably within the next 10 days. So really what he's trying to convince Canadians is that despite the fact that we've had a Liberal government this long, that he in fact is an agent of change. He hasn't been clear on what he's going to do with Trump. There seems to be a consensus in this country amongst all political parties, regardless of where they are in the country, whether it be a provincial government or federal parties, is that we need to fight the Americans, dollar for dollar, tariff with tariff. I don't know whether or not that's successful, given what happened earlier this week with the Ontario Premier putting on a tariff to American electricity and then rescinding it within very short order when the Americans then doubled their tariff. So this is a tricky position for Canada to be in, given that the American partner is just the stronger economy, the stronger partner, and they're the ones essentially calling the shots.
Lydia Miljan, Professor of Political Science at the University of Windsor in Canada. Thanks so much for all of that.
My pleasure, Nicole.
Daniel Beland is a political scientist and the director of the McGill Institute for the Study of Canada. He joins me from Montreal in Quebec. Welcome to you, Daniel. The fight with Washington has given the Liberals a real popularity boost, but now Mark Carney is Prime Minister. Do his priorities need to change?
Well, I think that his priorities are quite clear. It's the economy and, of course, dealing with the Trump administration, the tariff war that the president launched. And so these are the two priorities that were clearly outlined in his very short speech this afternoon.
Carney said he's planning, Daniel, trips to London and a trip to Paris, but not to Washington. What do you make of that?
Well, I think that we need to diversify our economic, trade, and I would say even security alliances. And I think that Europe is the obvious place to go. We have strong historical ties with France and the United Kingdom. We are part of the Commonwealth, obviously. And we have also a trade deal that we signed a while back with the European Union. And I think we need to do more in terms of increasing trade and I would say even our political relationship with the UK and the European Union.
Mr. Carney,
that question to why he's not going to the US, that's a part of your question. You know what happened to President Zelensky in the Oval Office and the way that that Donald Trump treated Mark Carney's predecessor, Justin Trudeau. I think that it will be risky politically for Mark Carney to visit Washington, D.C. at this stage.
Off the back of that, and there's a point well made, Carney has well-established economic experience, but is a political novice somewhat. Is there any nervousness in Canada about whether he is the right man for this job at this very time?
Many people think at least people on the center left, they think that he might be the right person for the job as a policy wonk, as an economist, as someone who has tremendous international experience and experience in the public sector, in the private sector. But as you said, he has no prior political experience before running for the Liberal Party of Canada, starting his race and winning just on Sunday. He had never run for office before. And he has never passed the electoral test. He has never been elected to any position in terms of, having a seat in Parliament. And that's something he will need to do. He will need to run for a seat during the next federal elections, which might be triggered as early as next week.
Daniel Beland, the director of the McGill Institute for the Study of Canada. It's been great to have you along. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Take care.